welcome to Word on the Street. I'm Shelly.
And I'm Isa.
And we are back and talking about what you need to know as a new student. So kind of the first thing that we talked about in our previous episode was just kind of going on the general experiences. We kind of talked a bit of different resources, housing and stuff, but we're going to go more into a different direction today. And yeah, if you want to kind of get started on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first episode, was more general, but now we're going to go into if you have a certain identity, how you would feel if you went to Santa Clara University. So first off, we're going to talk about if you have different ethnic or religious backgrounds. Now there's definitely a lot of cultural clubs here. That we have the Multicultural Center, which is a building that's reserved entirely just for cultural clubs to just meet and to have events. And we have 18 cultural clubs. And so these are social clubs. And so one of them that I could talk about is like Asian Pacific Islander Student Union, and these clubs, they often collaborate with each other. They have a lot of really great events.
Yeah, honestly, they actually had a new remodel in the building too, so the space it's
gorgeous.
It's awesome. A good place to host like clubs. I feel like when you really get the space like set up for this, like all these different clubs to come in, it's like just a nice way to go directly and like find a source for all these clubs. Like the building is right across from the bookstore.
The bookstore, and it's right outside the cafeteria, so it's like in the center of the school, super accessible. Yeah, and it's a really great way to find community. Definitely something I'd recommend going to in your first year to just trying to like make new friends, make new connections. They also, most of the cultural shows will have their own cultural shows too. So this will happen usually in the spring. A lot of them already just happened, but we'll have like Barcada, that's a Filipino club. We'll have like CSA, Chinese Student Association. They'll have these really great shows that have like skits. Some of them have songs, a lot of dance, and it's super fun to watch and support your friends.
Yeah, they also did a collaboration with the Lunar New Year, those events as well. The Office of Culture and Emotional Learning, we also do a lot of collaboration with these events too. So if you need access or resources, you can come directly also to the office too to learn about them, hear about them, but also go to the MCC. There's just gonna be so many people there too.
Absolutely. There's always something going on. So if you ever run out of things to do, most of these places will have Instagrams. There's newsletters that get sent out that all of the students receive. So you'll definitely be able to stay updated on what's happening around. And also there's also a lot of different cultural academic organizations as well. For example, we have Black Business Association, Black Pre-Health Association, and the National Society of Black Engineers. We also have the Latinx Business Association and the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. And there's definitely a couple other ones, but in general, I just want to say that like most professional clubs, regardless of if they're specifically cultural, they're very respectful towards any background, and it's just it's a great community.
Yeah, I think often within, like, when people hear about, like, a private institution, especially that's a Jesuit and, like, is known for the specific mission church, like, it's often that people think it's just only tailored to one. But I feel like they're pretty accepting, especially they've had, like, even buses to go to religious other, like, churches or practices that you, like, are practicing or affiliated with. So I feel like that's the inclusive part. But honestly, like, we do have like mass, so that's the main thing. Like
we do have a church. Our main logo is a church.
Yeah, so that is with that in mind as well. But I feel like also the classes sometimes can tailor, but there also has tons of classes that aren't Christian theology as well.
Right. Like you are required to take the religion classes, but they don't have to be Christian religion. I've seen like meditation ones. I've seen ones that talk about like women in Judaism, and also talking about religion. There's also a lot of different religious clubs that aren't Christian. We have like the Jewish Student Union. We have the Muslim Student Association, and then there's definitely a bunch of other ones that are like mainly geared towards like Catholic or Christian, and honestly those ones are fun too, just to kind of like go in and get some, like, they have a lot of free snacks and boba, so those are fun to just like pop in, pop out. Yeah, but in general, a lot of people here actually aren't too religious or don't like, religion isn't like the main reason for them coming to this school, so it's definitely something that you don't have to worry too much about when you come here. Yeah,
but also like if you are practicing too, like there also is spaces for like if you're practicing Catholic versus you're like a Christian, like there's different variation. I feel like there's pretty like distinct spots that you can where the church offerings and Bible study. So if you're also looking for that, you can too. But yeah, I feel like there's just kind of like majority, like you can find your community where you need,
Yeah, absolutely. But there's nothing too like forced on you. It's just if you want to go to an event, you can. And yeah, no one expects you to. All right, another identity we're going to get onto is sexuality and gender. So especially, I know that's definitely something that I was worried about coming here, because knowing it's like, oh, Jesuit, Catholic school, how are they going to value LGBT students who come here? And actually, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, but there's definitely a couple of things here and there. We took a survey a bit ago and found that majority of LGBT people on this campus are bi women. And I feel like this is just something that's kind of more common nowadays, because I feel like it's easier for women and femme-presenting people to explore their sexuality more better. And because of, like, you know, toxic masculinity and all that, it's a lot harder for men to explore their journeys.
Yeah, I think, honestly, like, the aspect of, like, talking about it's really depending on the spaces too, because I feel like there's a lot more spaces that are inviting of these conversations versus others that feel like it's still kind of in the binary. But also, like, we have a department like gender and sexuality, and I just feel like every time you walk into the department, like, it's so easy to, like, talk about these things and be really fluid in things that have people understand. So it also, like, you know, if you don't feel like you're going to one space, you might not feel completely comfortable, but then you go to others and you feel really open in exploring that. But also, there's a lot of, like, projects and things that people are doing to actively, like, creating spaces for LGBT plus people. And, you know, we also have the RRC for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Rainbow Resource Center is, and I believe we might have talked about this in the first episode, but it's located just under the cafeteria, so it's super easy to walk by, and it's just a great place to find community. Let's see. Yeah, I've honestly, like, just, like, as for, like, personal experience, being able to, like dating life or whatever around here it's pretty open. People are, especially if there's, like, online dating apps or just meeting people at, like, parties or at other events, people are pretty open about what they're open to. Yeah. All right, next we're going to talk about gender. So as of, I believe, this year, gender-affirming housing was just established, which is something that people have been fighting for many, many years. And so I'm super happy that was able to come through. So the two buildings that gender-affirming housing will be held is in Guelph Walsh and Nobility Hall. So these are two different dorm buildings, which are pretty close. Yeah, those are pretty close to campus. They're on campus.
Yeah, the dorms are kind of set up a little differently. So in Mick Walsh, it's kind of this, like, really long building, and each side there's, like, dorms, 2 people per room, and that one has communal bathrooms. Right. And then for Nobley, you can either have a single or a double, and the rooms are pretty big as well, but they have a bathroom attached to it. So the setup is a little different. They don't have communal. But yeah, those are, one of them is, like, closer right next to Benson, and the other one is, like, kind of further out on the corner of campus.
Right, Nobility's the one that's more secluded. But
next to the gardens.
Right, yeah, it's next. So that's, like, a little bit more isolated. But they do have that bathrooms attached to the side, which I find interesting because McWalsh has communal bathrooms, so that might be a bit of a challenge for people who don't, like, strictly fit within the binary. So Nobility might be a better fit for them if that's the housing that they're looking for. And also just want to iterate for this, so according to, like, the website, which we can totally link in the description, rooms in this community will be, like, mixed gender rooms, and it supports students from the first year through all the way up to their senior year, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, especially I think after housing finding housing after, it can be really difficult, especially I feel like our system of housing outside housing after is not great.
You mean, like, after, like, first and second years?
Yeah, because when you become a sophomore, you have still one more year of housing, and then junior year you're supposed to, like, live off campus. Right. And, you know, trying to find housing in itself is difficult, but with the extra layer of, like, having to find, like, gender affirming housing, like, where you can, like, because there's a lot of, like, specific, like, descriptions or, like, things that they have, like, requirements, like, so it can be, like, more, like, restricting. Like, if you don't feel like you fit in the binary, you can't, like, progress further at the option or something.
Absolutely. So there's definitely a little bit more stress, but usually you can reach out to the housing. You can either call or email them, and usually they'll go back to you pretty quickly. But yeah, it's usually a bit of a struggle for anyone to get housing, but absolutely it can be more of a struggle for people with different identities. Let's see. Also, just considering gender-wise, how people perceive if you're like transgender or anything. As like personal experience, when I first came here in my first year, I presented as a different gender, and I was engaging with a lot of different sports and cultural clubs and different groups, and I found that most clubs are very open, they're very accepting and whatnot. But definitely a lot of different groups, like Greek life, aren't known to be super accepting. So it's definitely something to keep in mind of. But on the upside, is some Greek life that is actively taking steps to be more accepting. For example, Sunnies is one of the sororities we have here that is definitely making more progress in being more inclusive to their LGBTQ siblings. But structurally, change is definitely difficult to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know. I'm glad that there is more advocacy with like one group is like, hopefully that will like spread into changing into the other, working in the other sororities and fraternities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like just like Greek life has just like traditionally been something that's so like structured and so like, okay, expect the guys to act like this, the girls to act like this, and I think it's great that there's some groups that are making change. Let's see. Oh, and as for anyone has an LGBTQ background, there are a lot of different clubs and events that are open to you. For example, we have QPACA. Our main LGBT club is QPACA, which stands for Queer People of Color Association. And which is interesting that this is the main club. They don't have a club that for people who aren't exactly of color, so this is just the main one that people feel. So I know that there's people who are like completely white who feel like, I don't know if I should come to this space, but they don't have any other spaces to go to. Yeah,
I did talk to a peer about that, about like being able to apply to the club because they wanted to be part of like the LGBT space, but also like being a little conflicted because it is specifically tailored to people of color. Right. But I don't know, I would have to talk to a member just to see like what the response would entail. Like, I'm pretty sure they're open to everybody.
Oh no, absolutely. That's like I've definitely heard. I asked some members about that, and they're like, yeah, no, of course they're open to everyone, but they just want to make sure that they're like explicitly stating that they're inclusive towards these like diverse backgrounds and stuff, that everyone is included, because historically like LGBTQ movements have been like led just by like white people, so it's just making sure that we're inclusive. We also have DISC, which stands for the Diversity and Inclusion Center, and so this is a building located in basically like the STEM building, and so it's just a great space for people who just feel like safe to just come in and just like study. They have a lot of different events. For example, last week we just had like LGBT engineering dinner, so they have a lot of great events that bring community together.
Yeah, I'm glad these events usually host kind of like they have like their big signature events. So you'll see them around campus and have the opportunity to interact with them, even with the spaces. When we did the market with Cupocalypse, that was like super fun. I saw so many people like just come to the stands and like, it was just like you'll see them apparent and like be able to interact with them like sometime throughout the year.
Yeah. Absolutely. They're very visible club, and QPACA has like a lot of different, they have like dances, they have, I think we're coming up on a show and like also a dance event, I think next month, so that should be super fun to do. Also talking about professional clubs, we have Queer and Qualified, which pairs up mentors and mentees and who are both like LGBTQ or they could be allies, and so this is a way for people who might be struggling within certain fields such as STEM or business, where predominantly it's not usually super welcoming towards those groups, to be able to get some good advice and some connections for their career.
Yeah, there is specifically one I got reached out to because I'm a gender and sexuality major, so I got reached out and they sent something that says if you are at least a second year sophomore who have taken 2 classes in gender and sexuality studies or has been cross-listed, if you have a GPA of 3.4 or above or a cumulative of GPA of a 3.0 or above, you can consider joining. Is it I think it's like Trita? I'm not sure, but I got reached out to them and they were talking about how they had this first induction ceremony in the fall of 1992 in order to recognize the academic achievements of students in women's studies. Yeah, maintaining feminist values central to women's studies and encourage diversity and just kind of support academic environment for all students. So there's some options out there. You might be able to reach out by them but I have not a lot to say about it since I just recently heard about it and just applied, but it seems like the good little extra thing to look into.
Yeah, I also didn't know that was a thing because, I mean, I'm majoring in electrical engineering. This is like a little bit of a different field, but I think it's great that they have professional communities for any field that you're going into. Also, we have like drag events here. We have like we have a drag show once a year, and Kupaka also hosts events where they will drive you to a drag brunch on Sundays. And I think those are super great. Those are super fun events. Honestly, I love drag. It's so fun.
The drag show I enjoyed so much. It was hype. It was so good.
We also have we can also have like student performers too.
Yes.
So that's always really fun to see. Just like young people really get out there and just start with this like art.
I had no idea they were slaying so much. I was like, this is like, they're professionals.
Yeah. No, it's great. They're slaying. All right, next topic we're going to talk about is disability. Now, I will say this is probably the weakness of this, definitely one of the biggest weaknesses of this campus. It's pretty bad, the disability, just accessibility around here. Especially in the dorms, the elevators will break down and will not be repaired for sometimes days on end, which I believe is completely unacceptable. And there is definitely progress. There's definitely progress being made, but it's very slow and sometimes can be backwards, which is very, very frustrating for people who are very passionate about making this happen. Yeah,
especially like all the little considerations, like even going around like our campus itself, there's a lot of spots that might not even have ramps, or like It's just like there's certain places that don't have like full accessibility, and like it is like the elevators, like you won't be seeing them for days.
Right. Yeah, I think last year in CASA, the one elevator that they have broke for an entire quarter, like the entire time, and it was there's 4 stories. So not only does this harm people who are disabled, this harms everyone who lives in that dorm, who has to go up like several flights of stairs just to go back to their dorm.
That's wild.
And we have organizations for this. We have OAE, which is the Office of Accessible Education. So this is the office that you contact if you have certain conditions that would, for example, I think if you have certain conditions that give you more time for tests so that you would be able to go through them. They're usually great about hearing back from, but you do have to contact them pretty early ahead of schedule, and you have to let your professors know early time. It's definitely a hassle, but you will be able to get the accommodations that you need.
Yeah, they're actually, I actually reached out to them and asked them about questions about students who didn't have resources. Like, let's say they weren't diagnosed officially, or like certain things that like there's a lot in our lifetime that like you have a lot of barriers to even get a diagnosis. So I asked them, I'm like, how do you have space for this? How do you move forward with other students? And they said that they're actually pretty open in talking to them about their circumstances, what accommodations. So they're pretty flexible. So if you don't have like an official diagnosis right away, you might still be able to attain some type of assistance of like extra time if you need it. But they do recommend, like, they'll do lead you to resources that will even get you a diagnosis too, if possible. But yeah, honestly, they've been pretty good. Like, I know somebody who's went to go reach out to them even in the middle of a quarter, like right at the end, and we're still able to get specific accommodations for them to help. So they've been actually really helpful, especially if a certain student's like kind of too scared to reach out and like maybe last minute, it's never too late. And I always encourage, reach out, like say something, at least you tried. And usually I feel like, at least from the OIE, they've been really very accommodating.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we also have a club where students can just like connect with each other. It's called the DSU, or the Disabled Students Union, and so they'll have events as well. So that's definitely a place to find a community with people who have that identity. And yeah, just want to reiterate that, like, I feel like the structure here is bad, but like the organizations here, like the people who are working at the OAE and people who are involved in the Disabled Student Union, I feel like these people are like, they're very motivated to help their students out. It's just that structurally it's really difficult to get around those physical barriers.
Yeah, I can see that. Especially, I feel like there's a lot of advocacy going on, but sometimes, like, structurally, you're so right.
Right, especially, just like above like the board of like, it's, just like legally anything is very difficult to accomplish. All right, almost at the end. Just some like quick facts that we come up. Just in general, 4-H Jesuit Catholic University Santa Clara is generally recognized as pretty welcoming, if not like it's ranked pretty high as like for a Catholic university as being like affirming. But on another website, I've seen that I think it was ranked like 25th in like one of the least LGBT affirming places. Now, I think this might have been like dated, but sometimes it can be perceived as such for people. But there have definitely been a lot of recent changes.
Yeah, I feel like in my perspective, it just really depends on what space you're in. Because
right.
I think certain spaces, open community, open arms,
like
it's just
like the gender studies.
Exactly, but then there's other places where I'm like, I feel like you have to hide your queer identity, and that's kind of just like, that's a lot of restriction in itself. So you know, it just really depends. But yeah, I think the school does do a lot of little things. I think we were the first one who put up their like our pride flag for as one of the like first missions to put up a pride flag for like the Pride Month.
Right, absolutely.
And then
I think it's like small steps like that
yeah,
matter, right?
like little things that, and then I feel like when I talk to like advocacy groups and things, they're always trying to push for more. And I was talking to a professor, and she talked about their specific resources. Even if you know are queer identifying and you are trying to get in Christian space, because you believe in religion, there's still a space you can actually talk to somebody specifically. Will help have a specific group if you're working with a religion, because like it's kind of even hard, even if you're like, let's say you are religious and you hold a queer identity, like how do you you know, but there's a space on campus. So you know, I think it's just trying to find like what pockets you have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was like campus ministry that they have events that, and they'll advocate this just like straight in the cafeteria. It's like, hey, what do I do if I'm Christian but I'm also queer? Like how do you connect those identities? And so they definitely have spaces for discussions like that, which I think is very important to have. All right. To conclude this episode, I would say that in general, whatever your background is, there's definitely going to be a space for you. And I would say that just LGBT people here, they're accepted, but they're not super celebrated, I'd say. Just like on campus, I think there's definitely a lot of progress that can be made, but there are definitely spaces for people to have. And there's definitely a lot of room for growth. And you also can help contribute to a more inclusive community by getting involved with these groups.
Yeah, I really like that. I think also, like, you finding the right spaces, you will be celebrated, and that is just kind of the piece of it.
Yeah.
But
no, of course. Yeah. It definitely depends on the communities that you're in. But yeah, we hope that these last 2 episodes have helped you come to any conclusion or become more educated just on what exactly life is like at Santa Clara University.
Yeah, we'll really appreciate having this episode today, and hope you all share love.